Good afternoon one more time today, but now we are coming to the absolutely most important part of the whole deal, which is how do you write the proposal? What are the strategies and what you should be expecting? So we have 6 panelists here, successful applicants who will tell you about their own experience, and then and the way I see it is that first we'll just give them time to present, each of them about 10 minutes or so, guys, right? And after all the presentations, we'll have enough space to answer your questions or questions that already have been sent to us so that you all get all the information that you need. So without further ado, I will just ask our first presenter, who will be Libor Barto.
We have this pointer here. Okay, hello. This work? Oh. Maybe I'll rather shout. I prefer to shout. So, yeah, I'm Libor Barto. Okay. So, try not to shout, actually. So, I'm Libor Barto, and yeah, I had a consolidator grant, and from this year, I have a synergy grant together with, let's see, yeah, together with Manuel Bodierski from Dresden and Michal Pinsker from Vienna. The grant is in mathematics or computer science. It's called polynomial time computation, opening the black boxes in constraint problems. Okay? So I learned that the title of the section is how to write a competitive proposal. So here is my simple answer. You just clearly and concisely describe the what, why, and how so that everyone becomes enthusiastic about your project already after reading the abstract. Okay, very simple advice. So the second point, you need to understand how the grants are selected, right? Understand well. Okay, so a bit in more detail. It needs to be clear and concise. It needs to be understandable for your audience. So you need to know what the audience is, and everybody must understand it. Concisely, it needs to have claims, like bold claims, and all of them needs to be substantiated, right? It's important, it's not enough. I mean, it's important because blah, 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 blah. No phrases, right? The topic of the proposal should be exciting, original, and it should be delivered as a nice story. Right? Why is it important? Why is it important to solve it now? Why I am the right one, right? And how, well, you need to give some methods, but they need to be novel and such. Everyone really means it, to some level, should be really understood by everyone who reads it. Okay? This is often not the case for grants for some reason, which are not clear to me. The other point is your project. So the referee needs to be enthusiastic about the project and yourself. So it must be clear that you are one of the leaders of the field, right? That somehow you are saying where the science goes, not following some stream. And really, already the abstract needs to capture attention, because if I read abstract and understand it, then I'm lost, right? And I don't read further. So especially the abstract needs to be understandable. It cannot start with something just few people understand. Right? To understand the selection process, you need to know 2 things. What does they want, right? What project they want. And it is actually very simple. For most projects, the only criterion is scientific excellence of the project and PI. There are no predetermined priorities, right? They explicitly say it, and that's more or less what they say. For the synergy grant, they say one more thing: there should be synergy, right? There are 2 simple things, so I mean, yeah. And you need to understand how the process works. So on this slide, here is what we did to write our proposal. So before we started writing it, and while writing it, I think there are like 3 main points, what we tried and what we did. So, of course, we needed to clarify goals on all levels and why are they important and how to achieve them. What I mean, well, there should be some long-term vision. I mean, where your project will lead to in 1,000 years. Okay, and I'm not exaggerating. I mean, you contribute to something big, which will happen in very distant future, and you should have this, right? And we wanted to have this. So, what is it? And then something. And there are also these really like concrete goals, right? We will show that this bacteria is I don't know what. There shouldn't be gap between these, right? It should be some kind of logical, concise, well, step-by-step process from big vision to some general goals and blah blah blah. So for our project, the vision is to understand what can computers do, okay, roughly. And there is something less somewhat understandable perhaps. We want some master unified algorithm that would solve everything efficiently. These are already not a vision, it's like lower level goals and blah, 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 and then it goes to concrete goals. So this is the main thing, of course. Then, of course, we needed to clarify where the synergy is, what's synergic about them. And also, because this project is big, we already are like 20 people, we needed to think about ways how to manage it, because we want to describe it clearly in the proposal. Also, like one more thing which is not here, it should also be kind of interesting and not boring, so we try to come up with something which catches attention, and these are the black boxes which somehow we centered the project around them. Okay, so of course we understood the process. So for synergy grants, it's 3 stages. In the first stage, your proposal is going to be read by, I don't know, 80 panel members, and this is whole science, okay? So we needed to make sure that, for example, the abstract is understandable by, I don't know, some guy doing history. I mean, it must. Of course, not fully perhaps, but at least partially. Then in other step where people read the whole proposal, it's 5th of the whole science, right? So what we can assume about these people? Well, maybe they have a quite good intuitive idea what an algorithm is, and that's about it. Okay? Not much more than the whole science. Right? Perhaps slightly more specific than whole. And eventually, after all these. After these 2 steps, there is 3rd step where external reviews are taken into account. And then important part is the interview. So for the external reviews, you also want to somehow lead the panelists to submit, well, to ask reviewers which are our friends. Okay, so for example, in the abstract, we say, our methods range from, and then we list a bunch of areas on mathematics, and of course we listed those which are friendly and didn't list those that not so much, right? And so you can influence some of the selection of reviewers, and that's what we tried. For the interview, well, we took it really seriously. So the interview consists of a talk, which is 10 minutes, and then interview. What we did is prepare slides. There were just 2 slides explaining goals, 2 slides explaining how, and 2 slides explaining how synergetic it is. We hired graphic designers to make them beautiful. Okay, just to show we take it seriously. We of course practice a lot. We had 2 mock interviews in Vienna and Dresden. We also had a specialist in rhetoric who told us, where to stand. What angle I should look at to the audience, right? And how often. Well, all things I'm not doing right now because I cannot, but yeah, I practice. And then we also prepared, get ready to possible questions on of the panelists, right? So we prepare like 100 answers. Wrote down, document. With answers, of course, we didn't memorize them, but we needed to clarify the answers. Okay, so overall, this was what we did. And then if I can give you some piece of advice, I think it's absolutely essential to clarify to yourself goals on all levels of generality, as I said. Okay? And it's not only important for ERC grants, I think overall in research. You should know when you are going, right? Yeah, clarify why, how, and also clarify to yourself that you want to apply, not that your institution is forcing you to apply or whatnot. I mean, yeah, you need to want to apply, you need to know why, otherwise you are not motivated at all. I mean, it's a terrible job to write it, right? Independence, no alibism. I mean, you are writing the proposal, don't hide, right? I was given this advice. Okay, I'll follow it, and then everything should be fine. I mean, no, you are responsible, right? You are responsible, and of course you want to accept advice, but it's your project. Really understand the process. Who is going to look at it? At what stages? It's important. And yeah, take it seriously. So that's my contribution. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for a really good handful of practical little things, and not so little. And the next presenter will be Fabian from Faculty of Science from Masaryk University.
Thank you very much for having me. I don't feel really like the person that should give you advice, so I just want to point out that this is the survival bias that I'm here, and I went through the process, and my advice is, because this is my first grant, so I don't know like how to really write it. So I can just give the advices to my younger me, and this is just my perspective, to what I found interesting, or what Peter that is younger than me would appreciate. So, you know, you can find those information about high risk, high gain, significant, innovative, and we heard from Libor very nicely what this proposal should have. So my starting grant had 2 portions, B1 and B2 that I wrote, and then with the rest I had like a really great person to help me with filling the rest of the form. So I really want to thank her. So people tell you, oh, start writing your ERC, then you write it, and then there is a deadline and submission, and it's done, yeah? But wrong. There are very important preparation steps that lead myself to the decision to start the writing process. So I just want to stress out, for me, it was critical to build a network that I really started from day one since my postdoc. So your network should, or my network was based on two categories. Professionals, there are former panelists from NIH, NSF, also ERC, and also the national grants that I get familiar with, and I was friends, so they can give me feedback. And then for non-professionals, I found it is important to communicate clearly, so even my wife can understand what's the proposal about. And then the final part, building my network, was grant coordinator from Masaryk University. She was fantastic. She helped me from day one. And I put it in this very emotional plot, where on the y-axis I'm showing the energy sum that I invested into the grant. It's just based off my feelings, of course, it's not true. And then on the x-axis, we've got time, not in scale. I just want to point it out. And I started to build my career with paper. This is how energetic it was, and then how much energy I invested, and small grant for a postdoc. And then I invested time to discover that my proposal was based on. Then I went to conferences and I discussed the idea with the community. Not, of course, like going fully in, just like, what you think about it? Do you think this is interesting this is interesting finding? So I discussed that. And then I made a decision to write the ERC grant, and the first part was really heavily influenced by my mentor at USC, Los Angeles, Gage Crum, who helped me at every single step of that. And then the second portion here, I'm showing you 2 variants. One variant is when you've got the great coordinator that helped myself immensely. And in the blue, I'm showing you when you're doing it alone. I don't suggest this part. My several friends tried that, and it's not a good idea. So here I'm showing you the preparation steps where we went through the administrative preparation. So for example, for myself, it was 7 years after PhD, I have to submit it. So, you know, we packed everything into that period. So once I was, you know, got the information about the game that I'm playing or the rules of the game that I want to play, then I start to really write it. Invested so much time, and then I want to point out that this step, the submission, was for me extremely hard to finalize all the documents, put it on everything in a proper format. But again, with my great coordinator, Veronika Mikitova, she was fantastic again. That's just find a person that can help you with. Okay, and then to be more concrete, I work I'm a biologist, I work in the pathway, it doesn't matter what it is. This is the pathway, so I want to deliver clearly my message of my proposal. So this is the pathway of my interest. I found it outside the liver where it should be originally, so I found it a different domain. And then the proposal is about this new domain in the animal. And I just want to demonstrate that this is outside my my scope of scientific field. It goes beyond my basic biology. So I link it to the human diseases, and here I'm showing you one disease which is called alkaptonuria. It's got, you know, striking phenotype. So I put every information on top of that. So I'm a biologist, but I want to study something relevant for human life. And I was lucky that mouse didn't recapitulate the phenotype, and my animal recapitulated, which was fantastic. So with this, I want to demonstrate that, you know, you need to also have a lot of portion of a luck that would deliver the message of your research that is important. And so I skip this, and I want to keep that just for. I wish you Godspeed with your projects, and if you want to discuss any of these, we can go back. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. This was a different type of project, and now we go to the third different type, which is the advanced grant, and Michal Holčapek will tell us about how he felt about the whole process.
Thank you very much. So I started to think how to answer this question, so it's very simple. I don't know the generic answer, but I will give you some feedback what I did at the time when I decided just to apply. So at that moment, I put to myself 3 basic questions here. So the first question is whether my scientific profile is sufficient for a particular ERC call. The second one, whether I'm capable to prepare really a competitive proposal. And then the last one, whether I can allocate adequate time for the preparation, because otherwise it does not make sense. Yeah, and I would say that all answers should be yes, or probably, hopefully yes, if you are a shy and modest person as I am. So then I decided, okay, I'm going to do it and keep emphasis on these 2 aspects, the quality of PI and research proposal. So first, the scientific profile of PI. What I recommend, just please compare your profile with PIs of funded projects from the last call. This is a good starting point here. And if you feel that your profile is significantly lower, then you may consider to work a little bit more and apply later. But you may decide also differently, because if you don't apply, you will never know whether you are competitive enough here. So I feel that, at least in my field, the natural sciences, it's very important to have at least one really strong paper in some multidisciplinary journal, like some nature journals, during the recent time, where you are either the first or corresponding author, simply to have the proof that you are capable to reach this level. Even 1 paper is enough, you don't need to have 20. But it should be some proof that you can reach this really highest level. For some other fields it could be different. I'm just talking about chemistry or natural sciences. So I did my self-assessment and check on Web of Science the number of papers and citations and H-index 47. So yes, I had the feeling that's not so completely bad for Czech Republic for analytical chemistry. And then I compared with PIs of previous ERC advanced call, and I recognized that I belong to last decile. It means the lowest 10% of previous applicants. Then I checked that I cannot find any previous previous PI from Czech Republic for advanced grants in biological panel. So then I said, well, it's really the right time to invest so much time into the proposal because my chances are probably extremely low. So I decided that I will start with the preparation, but that I will really allocate sufficient amount of time and energy with the help of my teammates, cooperators, and also consultants. So you can see here the history of my ERC applications. I started already in 2007. At that time, it was the panel of physical and analytical chemistry because I am analytical chemist. So it was evaluation B, and I did not reach the second step because the evaluation 6.88 did not reach the threshold of 8. I repeated 5 years later with some improvements, and then I got evaluation A in both steps, but being below funding threshold, so then I transferred to ERC CZ starting, and I got it. When I finished this one, I decided for another advanced ERC application and got evaluation B, but honestly, at that time, I did not invest enough time and energy, so this proposal from my today perspective was definitely not good enough. And you may see that the ranking was pretty far from the required threshold for the second step. So I realized that I have no chance in my own panel, analytical chemistry, because here they expect the novelty like development of new instrument, new methodology, or so on. But I'm not going in this direction. So I realized that I'm doing lipidomic analysis, lipidomics, that I probably need to switch to different panel. So I switched to biology, regardless of almost zero knowledge of biology, but my expertise lipidomics is there. So then I applied and got the ERC Advanced Grant this year. So I wish to emphasize that selection of appropriate panel is very important here. So you see that I have the grant out of my expertise, but I see that I can bring higher level of novelty and originality here, but not in my real field of analytical chemistry. And second message, I strongly discourage, regardless of any other recommendations, to apply to multiple panels. I have experience as the head of grant panel and Czech Science Foundation for many years, and I can really tell you, if you use the application for 2 panels, you only double the risk that at least in one it will fail. But there is absolutely no benefit to do this. If your proposal is multidisciplinary, the panel will see it. They may decide even to shift it, but never click 2 panels. So from my point, it's true mistake. So concerning number 2, the idea for this groundbreaking high-risk project, I cannot give you advices for your fields because I'm not expert, but I emphasize one thing, to write the balance between preliminary results and novelty. Because if you have too many preliminary results, so it may happen that the reviewer will say, well, this is just some logical continuation of previous work, and we don't see really high risk because we trust that this person will do it naturally. But on the other hand, if you have no previous results, then reviewers could comment that the project is not justified. So you need somehow to get the right balance. So my personal example is shown here. About half a year before application, we published this Nature Communications paper when we showed that we can differentiate pancreatic cancer patients from healthy volunteers based on the lipidomic analysis of blood. And the same was shown for other cancer types, but all the data were just the observational studies that we can do it, but without anything about the biological mechanism. And the goal of ERC was to explain the biological mechanism. So it was clearly separated. Yeah. And here we promised just to do some mechanistic study. We extended from 1 to 10 cancer types, from lipidomics to multiomics, because we added also metabolomics, proteomics, transcriptomics. We included various biological models, mice, oncopics, human, and different sample times. So it was pretty extensive. And basically, it was the switch from analytical chemistry to biology, just to show that we are doing really new things with very high risk. So finally, the last my slide, that you need really to allocate the adequate time. If you feel that you are under time pressure, then postpone for next time. Because you really need, even if you are excellent, you have great idea, you have to invest a lot of time to do it better. Yeah. So you need to polish all the stuff, language, graphics, all the formatting. And very important remark is here that groundbreaking ideas should be presented in a really simple way that everyone could understand, not vice versa. That simple thing should be presented in a complicated way. That's a really wrong thing. Yeah. So avoid everything too complicated. Yeah. Schemes, sentences, graphic, colors, fonts, just make it relatively simple. And of course, ask your experienced colleagues for critical feedbacks. It may be some senior colleagues from your institute, some previous ERC holders, someone who could be really critical. Yeah. And finally, I highly recommend professional consultations. So I am really obliged to Professor Strakoš sitting here and his group because I participated a couple of times in these courses during the years for the improvement. It was extremely useful, and personally I also recommend one agency, Yellow Research Agency, because these two critical resources provided complementary information and it helped me just to improve it to the level which was really useful for funding and for application. So if I have just a few seconds more, I will just show you two starting slides from my interview, what I prepared for interview, that I did very simple schemes. That first one is just the identification, how cancer is serious, and you can see these 10 cancer types, what we are studying, and then the explanation of difference with available screening, without screening, and identification of two key aspects of the whole proposal. And then slide number 2 showing just my vision of future screening and showing that we have some preliminary data even for precancerous lesions. And after this, I explained the goal, how we want to do it. So it's relatively simple, but it's exactly how it should be, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you also, and I particularly like the message, don't give up, ever. That's what ERCs are about, not giving up. And now we'll ask the fourth speaker, which on my list is Jan Hrček, but if you want to do it, that's okay too. No, you got up already, ladies first. No? You might confuse me now. Okay, so you go for it.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I applied into panel LS8 and the message don't give up applies for me as well. I applied 3 times and only got it on the last time. Yeah. So in 2019 I got the interview, got an A score, and based on that I got ERC CZ, but before I got the ERC CZ, I still applied one more time, and I didn't even get to interviews. I was actually in the bottom 15% of the field. Yeah. So like sometimes there can also be glitches in the process. Yeah. Then I was happily enjoying my ERC CZ, and there's a condition that you have to apply again, I did that, but I had to go into the consolidated category, so I wasn't feeling very. I didn't feel that it will happen, but it did in the end. Yeah, and in the last step, I kind of rewrote it multiple times, right? But in the last step, I only rewrote introduction, and it worked out. Yeah. So I would like to say what are the key ingredients for the ERC project from my perspective. And it's these 4, yeah, the idea, feedback from peers, some unique strength, and being well connected in the community. And the idea needs to be presented in a, so like every research we do is complicated, right? So, but the entry point into the proposal needs to be a very, I feel it needs to be clear and simple. Like a single entry point, yeah. Then you need feedback on all aspects of the proposal. You need some kind of unique strength, which could be a new method, could be important preliminary data, but also could be the right mix of experience for that proposal. And it's good to be well connected in the community, so be active in conferences or take career through prestigious institutions. And I'll now, this is like in general, and now I'll tell you how kind of it was for my proposal, and I'll start from the bottom. So like the lesson is that you don't need to have the idea first. Like you can work on the other aspects, and maybe eventually you'll get to the clearly focused idea. Yeah. So I did a PhD in a heavily international group, but here in Czech Republic, which is like a mild plus. Then I did a 3 year of postdoc at Oxford, which is a big plus. But I also was not particularly active at conferences, and I didn't take part in organizing any. And this is also just to show that you don't need to have, you don't need to really tick all the tick boxes. It's good enough if you tick some for a solid proposal. Yeah. And in my experience, people known to panel members do generally better. So that's why the conferences are important, and it was not my case. But like these, the connections in the research community led to my involvement in a new model system. Yeah, so that comes to the second point, the unique strength, and so I started using a model system. Drosophila is a classic model system in life science, but not as commonly used in ecology. I started using that system, and I developed it in a way so that I was able to do large multi-generational experiments in boxes. Yeah? So that was like an important part, and I had experience from my PhD and postdoc with both field research and laboratory experiments, so like putting different things together. Then for so that I had this unique strength. I had this system which I could address a lot of questions with, but I didn't have one simple focused question. And when I started writing, we formed an informal writing group with 3 other colleagues from different institutions, all from the same panel. So basically, we were direct competitors, but you're mainly competing with all the good applicants from the West, right? So I think it makes a lot of sense to help each other. I think this was a major factor in my success. From the 4 people, we got 1 ERC, and then I got the ERC CZ, and then eventually, after some time, I also got the real ERC. So what we met, like we were sending out first concepts, then like draft of B1, B2, meeting 3 times for extensive time, and this helped me to finalize the topic. Yeah, that's the most. Basically, I had at the beginning of the proposal, I had many questions I could address, but I only decided then to pick one of them, the most interesting one. Yeah, and then once you get to the B1 stage, and one thing this kind of writing group also helped me was it helped me keeping up with time, right? So I had to send them something. I was always the last from the group to send my materials, but I can somehow managed. And then once you have the B1, I sent it to like a broad array of 15 colleagues, and got very good feedback. It's ERC level grants are or should be interesting. So I think, so in general, colleagues are generally keen to comment, I would say. And then at the stage of the interview, you also need feedback, but you can get to that later, right? And so I now finally, I'll just briefly give you the idea, which, or like this kind of entry focus point of the proposal. So the proposal is about connection between maintenance of diversity in nature and maintenance of diversity and genetic variation in nature. So it's one of the biggest questions in ecology is how is diversity maintained? So why we have these like super rich ecosystems despite a lot of negative interactions like competition, predation, and parasitism. And in evolutionary biology, there is analogous question, how is variation maintained within populations despite selection and drift? Yeah, so why don't we don't get a selection to like one single optimal genotype? And these two questions have been addressed separately, but in the project I'm putting them together, and I'm asking whether genetic variation improves maintenance of diversity, and diversity improves maintenance of variation. So like this maintenance of biodiversity at these two different levels, population and community. And we do that with large laboratory experiments, also with field surveys. We look at the mechanisms, and the project has some conservation implications because we are nowadays losing diversity both in terms of number of species, but also genetic diversity within populations. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for another useful addition. And now our lone woman, successful applicant, I sure hope that next time there will be more of you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Okay, so I will show you my way how I got the in my case ERC starting grant proposal. I applied in 2021, and so first I will show you like what was before I got the ERC. So I started in the autumn of 2020. I started as a junior group leader at the IBT here in Prague, and so I started there, like my group, with a new project. For this project, I used the insight which I got during my PhD and during my postdoc. However, the project was not a direct continuation of any of those two research lines, right? So that was good in a way that I never had to really defend how the stuff which I'm proposing is different from my supervisors. What is the downside of it, this approach, is that, of course, I started with very limited set of preliminary data. Already this year, in 2020, I decided to submit a grant proposal for Junior Start from Hrček, and I did not get this grant. And so the feedback from the evaluators, although it was mostly positive, I got a feedback that I did not have a lot of preliminary data, and that also that my team leadership was not yet proven. Obviously, I did not started my team yet, right? But anyway, so the next year, we kept working on preliminary data. That was obvious, because the team grew, that critique was off the table, and I decided to reapply for Junior Star and also to apply for ERC starting grant. For this, I got support from a grant department of the VIB in Belgium, which was the institution where I did my postdoc. I was already, at the time, I was not there anymore, but they still see it, that the support that they give to their alumni, if they are successful, then it's actually good visibility for them also. So that was very helpful. I got feedback on my abstract, I got feedback on my CV, and also I had the opportunity to brainstorm the idea for the proposal with two VIB group leaders. Those two people were from the life sciences domain, but quite far away from my core expertise. And this was really arranged way ahead of time, so it gave me the chance to, really tailor the ID like based on their feedback if needed. Then later I also got support from the Technology Center in Prague, feedback on the presentation of the proposal ID, and then later on when I got to the interview phase, I had the opportunity to do a mock interview, which was very helpful because of course, you get a feedback on your presentation, but it also takes away a part of the stress which you then have during the real interview. So in the end, I was awarded both Junior Star and ERC starting grant. And in the next, what happened next was that I had to, actually gave the Junior Star back to Hrček because I actually like the deadline is among the same time. I think there was a difference of 1 week. And so I decided to just bet on this one card and really not to split my energy and focus between 2 major projects, but rather make one, which would be really polished to, as much as I can. And so I applied with basically the same project. So I gave a junior star back and I have my ERC now. I will show you a little bit about the structure of my proposal. So I wanted to emphasize this my way at the title of this talk of mine, because like everyone has their own style, and so I will just show you like what is maybe slightly different from an average proposal, but how do I write it? So this is actually the first page of my B1, and what is strange there maybe is that like I dedicated the first page to explain really clearly the context of the grant proposal. So I explained the challenge, I explained the knowledge gap, I explained what is not known and what is known, so not to step over anyone's shoes, that you omit things which are already known and you pretend or like seem to pretend that they are unclear or whatever. I explained very clearly what the momentum is and why it's me and right now is the time like when to fund this proposal. I clearly state the hypothesis and I redo it several times in the grant later on, and I clearly also showed specify what was the impact or what is the expected impact of it. So why should ERC spend all this money to fund this proposal? Then for the state of the art, I use this kind of short paragraphs in which I really, in a very tailored manner, explain all the knowledge, background knowledge which is needed just for the proposal. And so at the end of this paragraph, you can see in blue that I each time explain to the reader like why did I make them read it, so that they are sure that they did not read anything which was not necessary for the grant proposal later on. Then, like as I said, the hypothesis, I think it's super important. And when myself I do a panelist for other types of grants, people often fail to really specifically say what the hypothesis is. And I'm very nervous about it if I don't know what the hypothesis of the grant is. So I really do this. I hypothesize that. It's very simple, and I think it works. For the work packages, I always structure it into these four chapters. So I start with the aim, explaining why do we want to do it and what do we want to achieve. Briefly, which methods are we going to use for that? What will be the outcome, so what will we learn and how that actually connects to the other work packages which are there in the grant proposal. And then after, like at the end of each work package, I really do a lot of risk and feasibility analysis because I think like whenever you read something and you have problems and you doubt whether this is feasible, this will not work because it's too late if you read the risk mitigation at the end of the whole grant, because then like you remember that like, there was a problem and you don't connect it with that problem might have been solved in the end. So this is what I do. And like in the last slide, I just when I was thinking what to actually show you, I was thinking about maybe the lessons which I learned like through this adventure, and so I want to share it with you. One, and I could stop here, I think. This is start early. And you notice that basically I worked on this grant for a year because I first submitted a year before, then I submitted for the real. Get feedback from experts and non-experts. We heard a lot about it today because experts and non-experts are evaluating your grant, and you definitely don't want those people the evaluators to be the first ones who actually read your grant. And then give yourself time to digest the feedback, because it's never very pleasant to listen to critique. It's good to calm down a bit, put it away for a while, and then get back to it and actually fix all the recurring critique points. Because, for example, for my ERC starting, I had 10 evaluators in total, and I'm pretty sure that like any of the points which like were there to criticize, you can be pretty sure that one of those people will capture it, right? And So how to start if you did not start yet? I would still think that a good start, like not talking about the science, you have to do your science, that's clear. But like for grant writing, I think it's really very beneficial if you take a course, a good course in grant writing, because it is a skill, and as any other skill, like you are not born with such a skill, and there are rules which can, I mean, it will not help you to find a brilliant idea, but it will help you how to present it, and like it will definitely increase your chances for success. And I would recommend to be very active in offering to comment and edit other people's grants, because that gives you the overview, and like it makes it for you much easier to actually find your own style of grant writing. Thank you.
Thank you for another different edition. And now, last but not least, Marek Stibal will tell us about his experience, and I think this is another ERC CZ grant, right?
Thank you. Hello, I'm Marek. I study glacier ice sheets ecosystems, but I'm not going to talk about my research at all. And actually, I'm not going to tell you how to write a competitive ERC proposal, because I don't know. Rather, I'm going to talk about my sort of pragmatic relationship with ERC, which is one-sided, really, lots of unrequited love. Yeah, why do I keep writing ERC proposals? Is it because I am so good, or because I think I'm so good? No, it's not. There's actually ample evidence that I am not very good at writing ERC proposals. So I submitted my first ERC project. It was a starting grant that was in 2014. And that was like 5 years after my PhD, and I got a B in the first round. And looking back, I can clearly see how bad it was. It had no big idea in it, no unifying idea, and there was no story that I could have told had it been successful. So it was very well deserved, I think. But it wasn't a waste of time, because I managed to recycle this proposal into 2 other projects that did get funded and bought me like another 4 years of research and career. So it definitely, like writing an ERC proposal, even if it's a failure, is not a waste of time. So I, like 5 years later, I thought I did have a good idea, a big idea, a story that could be told, it should be told. So I wrote another application. It was a consolidator one, because I was too old, obviously, for a starting one. And I did make it to the interview round. I went to Brussels. This was pre-COVID, so I went to Brussels for an in-person interview. It was quite overwhelming, and I didn't exactly nail it. I'd say I blew it. But I got an A, unfunded A, the best one. Which was then, thanks to the brilliant ERC CZ program, which I'm immensely grateful for, got transferred or got funded as an ERC CZ project, which I'm still working on. And I didn't even have the budget cut, so that was nice. So I'm still working on this project. And actually, you know that one of the rules of ERC CZ is that you have to reapply to ERC. I did reapply the following year with exactly the same project, well, with some like very subtle modifications, because I still thought it's a good project, and I was already sort of starting to work on it. And so it was exactly the same project with exactly the same result, not surprisingly. But honestly, I wasn't really motivated at that point, because I had already got the money. So, I mean, I don't really care if it's ERC or ERC CZ, the money is, yeah, the same. Yeah, so that's, again, I was being pragmatic, you know, I just, yeah. Anyway, but this project is sort of coming to, well, hopefully not coming to a close, but yeah, it'll be over in less than 2 years. So I was already getting nervous, right? Because, you know, what am I going to do in 2 years? So, yeah, this year, actually, I started discussing another big idea, which actually stems from my ERC CZ project, but it's even bigger, you know, and more expensive. So I sort of included a couple of colleagues from different places, and we started discussing a synergy grant. And we started actually writing the proposal for it, but we started late. And this is not because we were just like, yeah, having a good time and not doing anything, but because it was sort of dictated by my field work. So we could only start basically after the field work and after we knew what we could do, which was in September. And by coincidence, the deadline for the Synergy grants is today, or was today. Yeah, so we just, like, at some point we realized that, you know, it wouldn't be good enough. It just wouldn't be good enough, and we actually withdrew the application. That was a couple of weeks ago, which is a bit disappointing, but yeah, we're gonna try next year, definitely, with hopefully a stronger, better proposal. But yeah, but you can see I'm not very good at having ERC projects funded, 0 out of 4 attempts. It's pretty good. But yeah, but why do I keep applying for ERC? Because my research is ERC, and I don't mean ERC worthy or ERC level, ERC quality, whatever. It's an alternative acronym. My research is expensive. Again, I'm being pragmatic, it is. I mean, I don't claim that like good research has to be expensive. It's not essential, but my research happens to be expensive. Yeah, and who's gonna give you 2 million euros? You know, it's expected. ERC expects your research to be expensive. It's not questioned. It's not sort of frowned upon, you know, it's just part of that program. So if your research is expensive, yeah, then ERC is the call for you, I think. E stands for risky, and risky does not mean dangerous, which, I don't know, yeah, some aspects of my research might look dangerous. We're trying not to make it dangerous. But risky as in unpredictable. There's so many things that can go wrong in my research, and they will go wrong. And because, I mean, we're trying to do something that hasn't been done before for good reasons, because it's difficult. Because it's just not easy and it's expensive. So yeah, risky is another aspect of ERC projects or ERC research that is expected and maybe even required. It should be risky, but it should be, there should be a big idea behind it. So if you really manage to pull it off, then it's big. But like the probability of failure is high, and believe you me, you know, yeah, I know failure quite well. And C, I was considering a couple of options for C, like completely bonkers or completely unpredictable, but I went for collaborative, which is more like, yeah, civilized. Civilized could have been a good one. Anyway, collaborative, and I don't mean like wanting to work with your buddies, you know, that you already know, that you've worked with before, but rather trying to sort of seek the best experts in the aspects of the research that you're not quite familiar with. And why ERC is, I think, a good way to do this is because it's a brand. It's a brand that everybody knows. So if you approach someone that you haven't been in touch with at all, and it's like, and you say, okay, I'm doing this, I'm trying to do this, I don't know how to do this, and you do, and I'm going to write an ERC proposal, then it's something that everybody will understand, unlike some other maybe sort of national type of calls and funds. So collaborative, like in this picture, you know, we have like a microbiologist from Prague, a glaciologist from Bristol, and isotope geochemist from Philadelphia. So it just brings people together in a relatively easy way, because everybody knows what is expected, and that ERC is, well, it's a brand. That's it. I think that's it. So if your research is expensive, risky, unpredictable, and you want to collaborate with the best experts, I think ERC is your ticket. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all guys for really interesting presentations, each very different, which just shows this is an individual business. I think we heard a lot of useful pieces of information and advice, even if you don't think it's advice. Now, we have a bunch of questions up here that already have been sent to us. So I propose that we start with those while you are thinking about what you were thinking during the presentations and maybe made mental notes. And so if anybody wants to jump in and ask, then of course that's okay. But let's just start with what we already have, if everybody agrees. They are not addressed specifically to anybody, it seems to me, so, you know, whoever of the 6 of you here want to take any of it up, then feel free. So the first one, I hope I can read it from here without my glasses. How much time do you see successful PI spend on the drafting of the proposal? Is it equivalent to weeks or months or full-time work? So we have heard snippets, but now we have it all in one big question. Anyone?
Years.
Years.
Well, the preparation is months, years, perhaps, but the actual writing is weeks, rather, I would say.
Yeah.
And we have a clear idea. Then.
Yeah, some of you said like a year or something. I would think more, you know, give or take.
But a year you don't do a full time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's definitely not weeks.
No, you know, it's not a gotcha, really. I have said this so many times in so many different contexts, that this really takes a lot of work and a lot of time in order to be competitive. Okay, so I think we understand this part. Regarding panel selection, how do you recommend choosing it? If your work doesn't overlap with a discrete panel, this is a big question. I see it. I was on a panel for 8 years, so I saw this repeatedly. This really is a big struggle from my experience. Would anybody like to, do you have any specific experience with this that you maybe applied to a panel and you were told in the feedback, well, you know, maybe you should have thought something else? Yeah?
Actually, I had the problem that my field, lipidomics, is not, I would say, included in natural sciences, but in biology field, and I'm not belonging to this area. So I strongly hesitated, but finally I decided to go there. But I was very afraid of the interview, yeah, because the interview, it was actually 40 minutes of discussion with a full panel of biological experts. So I was really scared, but I carefully prepared for this, and probably I succeeded. So the selection is difficult, so I cannot advise the particular issue, but you have to decide.
Yeah, it is difficult. You really have to give it a lot of thought and be prepared to maybe through the process of preparation when you talk with people and get feedback from others to change it, switch it, because there sometimes genuinely you will not know whether panel A or panel B would be better. But from my experience, whenever we had a project that said, and by the way, I would also like to be evaluated by panel X in addition to this one, it didn't help. It really, you know, as much as we are all hoping for interdisciplinarity, in evaluating the grant proposals, this could actually be a hurdle. So, you know, really think about it very, very carefully. On the other hand, it's true that, I mean, the panel knows, this proposal clearly reaches into different disciplines, different panels. They will ask somebody from this other potential panel for a review, and so it's not, you know, you won't be evaluated by somebody who really understands the stuff that is outside of your narrow discipline, but it is an issue. Okay, I think Zdeněk's hand is up.
I have a little comment related to that. This is a general comment, but to the selection of panelists applies as well. Don't play a game.
Yeah.
I have, as a panel chair, experienced a couple of times the situation that the people either submitted to our panel or don't submit to our panel because they were afraid of something or whatever, but it was clear that that the choice is, I would say, not substantiated by the content of the proposal. And then what happened? Simply, two chairs of the panel talked together and transferred the proposal to other panel. And this is not a good impression when they have to transfer it. So try to put it, if you are in this situation, you don't exactly know which one, so send it to that panel where it has a better chance to be fairly evaluated. That's, I think, choice. And I very much remember, I think Professor Holčapek is the right person to talk about this, because he really hesitated a lot, and you know, what he did was good. Difficult for him, but that was the right strategy, and that's, I think, perhaps a good example.
Thank you. Am I starting from the top again? It seems like it's changing on me. Okay. Were your previous publications on the same topic as your proposal, or do you propose a slight difference to your? Is it slightly different to your previous work? That's another legitimate question. Any experience here? Okay, Kateřina, go.
I guess it has to be innovative, right? You have to come up with something new, so it cannot be a continuation of your previous work. That's a general rule. On the other hand, it has the other part of the thing is that of course you have to be able to prove that you have some expertise in the area which you are proposing. So it cannot be like a complete change, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You have to show your expertise, but at the same time, you are not doing incremental research. That's a phrase that will kill any proposal. As soon as that comes up, then it's done. Yes, Jan.
So I had experience in one of the fields, community ecology, but the second field, population genetics, is very new for me. But I got funded anyway. So I'm now in a situation where I understand half of my project, and I'm trying to understand the second half. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And did anybody, either in the feedback or then during the interview, did anybody ask about this? You know, do you have somebody who will kind of be filling in this area?
No, interestingly, like generally the feedback about like my position in this was really good. I think it was because I was doing some. It was population work, but it was not population genetics on my postdoc. So I could like talk about variation within a population, but I don't know anything about the genetics, or don't know much about the genetics yet. So.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I quite a few times actually was in a situation in which we had to deal with this kind of thing. The PI, the applicant, has expertise in area X, but is also proposing to do something in area Y, in which she doesn't have any kind of experience. So the question then arises, well, okay, so does this person know what they're getting into? Do they have somebody who will be actually plugging in the missing pieces? And for that, I would say it's really good to have a network. And once you mention the network in there, then this question goes away. So quite a few of you mentioned that you started with building a network. So yeah, that is a really good, important piece.
I think that this is a relatively common situation, that PI is not expert for everything in the proposal. I know it in my case and in other cases of my friends having ERC, that you may be expert for something, but for other areas you have other cooperators who are responsible for this job. So this is definitely not rare, and this is always between the balance of preliminary data and novelty. It should be in the right ratio, as I mentioned on my slide. If you have too much or too less, that's not good.
Yes. Okay, so I go to the next one. I want to praise Michael Holčapek for showing that behind a success story, there are many failures. This is really motivating. I cannot agree more. So don't be discouraged. Okay, Marek is pragmatic, money is money. But this is again a symptom of a systemic weakness of our university. After a prestigious grant, does Marek have a position? That's what I actually kept asking myself.
I don't understand the question, sorry.
The question is, okay, you have this prestigious grant, it ends. Are you going to have a position afterwards?
I haven't asked.
Not very pragmatic.
You'd better start. Okay. But this is a serious question. absolutely, I would agree. Okay, the next one. Can you describe the team you included in your proposal? Did you consider including multiple colleagues at your level or of expertise, or just junior staff? And I'm not sure who this is directed at, so whoever wants to pick it up.
I can say how it works in our grant. So we are, this is synergy, so there are more PIs, there are 3 senior guys, and actually for us the rest of the team are juniors, so postdocs, PhDs. So we didn't have any senior, well, we have network, which is mentioned in the grant, but we hire only juniors.
Yeah, I think generally, at least from my experience, the team isn't or doesn't have to be necessarily described in huge detail. You will have to say, okay, I expect so many postdocs, for example, or so many senior colleagues, which shouldn't be too many. I have seen proposals being killed for that. Well, so obviously this person doesn't feel up to it yet, so it shouldn't be top heavy. But that's it, because it is individual. Don't forget, it's really your own personal grant. So whoever you want to put in, because they will be helpful to carrying out the research, then that's great. Yes?
May I just add? So for strategy grants, I was advised not to put actually like more experienced people, and just really own it. And then this is my grant, and then nobody should help me. I should just be like, I'm showing my independence.
Thank you, and there's another starting grant.
I would say that this question is very relevant for starting grant, where you have to prove that you are independent. So that's one of the very key points. And so in my grant, I had a senior person, because that senior person was needed for a very sophisticated expertise, which I do not have. And so I had a senior person, more senior than I was, but that person was it was specified that he will be doing this thing, and also the FTE which I planned was 20%. So then it was clear that I'm just filling the gap in my skills, right?
Oh yeah, that's totally fine. What I'm talking about was a proposal where there were like 4 or 5 senior people and a couple postdocs, so that just doesn't look too good. But yes, I think this is a really good point also about starting grants. So if any of you are thinking about applying for a starting grant, that's a really different category from the other ones. You have to prove yourself in ways in which you don't have to do in the other ones. On the other hand, in Consolidator and Advanced, you really do have to show that you have leadership experience, which in the starting grant is not as important, although it's definitely looked at as well. Okay. Thank you to Jan Hrček for introducing the idea of an ERC informal writing group. A really great idea. Again, I couldn't agree more. It's always much better to have a group for feedback, for support, for everything. Would you like to elaborate on that?
I don't know if there is a specific question. I think I was talking about it in the presentation, right? That it was kind of spontaneous, but
bore fruit.
For me, a very important part of that was also like keeping to the deadlines. That helped me to keep on the time. Yeah.
And psychologists also, I think, have been telling us for decades that we learn a lot more from our peers as opposed to from somebody up there who is telling you how and what to do. So this would be another point proving that. Okay. Is your ERC project proposal include, no, if your ERC project proposal included investments, how easy was this to organize at your, I can't read the last, institution? Sorry, I forgot my glasses. Any investors here?
Yeah, I had investment €1 million for new mass spectrometer, and it was relatively easy to organize because I have experiences from previous cases, and at my university there is good support. So my project started August, and at the beginning of September the instrument was installed because we started the process like half a year earlier. So it was easy.
Yeah, so my experience is completely opposite. yeah, so my project got delayed by a year because of that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, great question. What would you avoid if you did this again? Any thoughts? I mean, it was successful, right? Okay.
I mean, this is just my personal experience, but in one point I had a feeling like I had too many mock interviews, that those suggestions were just absolutely opposite each other. So one was just, you know, go more into interview and, sorry, the introduction, and then the other person say, just, and I thought like, oh, this point I should stop.
Yeah. There could be too much of a good thing, right? Okay, next question. Can you share more about the interview process? Any takers, Kateřina?
It was
fun.
Yeah. So my interview. So we did this WebEx online interview. I did have problems with connection. Actually, 2 times my connection broke. I ended up calling them from my phone. It was not that I was using Wi-Fi. I was on a actually Cessnet line in Biotech. But just this WebEx thing was somehow overloaded with data, or what was it saying? So that was quite interesting. But that was on like let's say a cherry on the top, because otherwise, so I was waiting for 45 minutes in this online waiting room, so meaning all alone in a seminar room, right? After 45 minutes of waiting, they just pushed the button and they were like, okay, start the presentation now. So I started the presentation, I gave my presentation. Whenever I stopped my last word of the presentation, they started shooting questions in a very aggressive, not pleasant manner. The first question was actually whether I would agree that my proposal is not based on enough preliminary data and is generally descriptive, which in my field, being descriptive, that's bad. So that was the first question, and so naturally, I mean, I came there to win this thing, so I said that I absolutely do not agree, but like this was the atmosphere, so it was quite unpleasant, and then I got the problems with connection. At the end, the chair told me that I should not be worried that the technical problems will not, you know, influence their decision making. I was like, sure, I completely trust you. But then I got it, right? So I mean, like anything can happen. Just don't. I mean, you have to win it nevertheless, right?
I have similar experience. In my case, the connection also failed. So I waited also for about 45 minutes and they restarted everything and it failed like 2 times. So I started with the delay. Then I did my presentation. It was for 10 minutes, so I prepared like 10, 12 slides. And when I trained these mock interviews, so after some time I did it, actually, I memorized this, yeah. And then my younger colleagues told me, Michal, we don't like it. Yeah. Normally you are so natural, you are so wild and so on, and when you do this mock interview, it's evident that you have memorized and we don't like it, you don't have energy. So I discarded the whole preparation and I did it from the scratch. Yeah. Then this was much better, and discussion was for 40 minutes. It was not aggressive, but I had a couple of questions and I had like almost 80 spare slides. And I had 2 screens, so I was prepared to open immediately the slide where the question was targeted. So I listened to the question, and meantime, I know some trick how to open immediately the slide without double-clicking. So when the person finished, I immediately opened the slide and started the answer. So it looked that I anticipated the question, and it was for every other question. So this looked pretty professional, and I was very happy. I was learned by Yellow Research to do this trick using control button and so on. So this was really cool. And I wanted just to go into really details and to talk a long time because I was scared of any biological questions. So after some time, the chair said, okay, it's extremely interesting, but we don't have more time, so thank you, bye. And they closed. So I was completely sweat, and I did not know whether it was good or not, but after some time, I obtained the message that my grant is not funded and that I am on spare list. So I was totally frustrated. And the next day I obtained another email and they congratulate me to the funding of the project. So I was absolutely confused. I read it like 3 times. And then in the evening, I obtained the email sent 1 day before that they wrote me that they upgraded from the spare list to the funded projects meantime. I was even more confused, and later I was explained by the person from ERC that the funding was decided immediately after the meeting, but this is just the standard process how they do it. So simply I have it, but I was pretty confused.
Well, to summarize, interviews are always an adventure, so you just have to be prepared for a lot of different things. Yes?
May I just mention, they use those WebEx client, which is totally strange. I mean, we are more used to Zoom, Teams, or whatever, and they use that WebEx. So once you are waiting in the room, and then time, I don't know, 40 minutes, it's gone, they will just disconnect. So you need to go again and again, and if this is, and then you've got the connection issues, so it's a pain in, sorry.
We know where. Okay, so that's, or anybody else would like
maybe,
to?
I have the same experience with my first grant, so somehow I memorized it, and then I was a bit tense, right? So I think the solution is memorize it better, right? I mean, it should be a show. I mean, it was alive for the next grant, and it was fun because there were like 3 people. And I mean, it's an opera. I mean, it's a show, and practice more. Right?
I completely agree. Like the last time on my interview, I did this. So I practiced enough so that I knew it by heart, but I practiced more so that I practiced also the delivery of the message.
Sing it.
Yep, that's true. Okay, so I think we exhausted this one. The next one, how much time are you allocating to the grant? How do you balance it with other work, assuming that you do other things beyond just writing the grant?
You mean once it's written, once it's running, or before? Preparations?
I read it as in the preparation, but maybe it was meant as when you actually...
It is meant now. So when you run the grant and you have some other work.
Ah, okay, because when you write it in your proposal that you will be engaged in whatever point F, 52727 FTE. So yeah, when you are running the grant, how do you balance it with your other work, assuming that you do have other work?
I have 50% on ERC and I have a couple of other projects, so simply I do as much as I can, and in parallel I have many other activities and functions, so at the moment I'm also working almost during all weekends and evenings, but well, with personal life it's complicated, but you have to manage somehow. You are also busy, so you know. Anybody
else would have a maybe less exhaustive.
I try not to do other work. I just try to focus on the grant.
Yeah, I would say that for me it is. I also have 50% of the grant, and I also have other grants and other projects in the lab. And I would say this 50%. That's basically the reality. Yeah, and also maybe one point. I don't know. Like the research which we are doing is super expensive also, and so it's not even that ERC would solve it all. So you are still applying for grants.
Yeah, I would expect that it also will depend on your type of position. I mean, if you have to continue teaching, for example, you cannot drop that. So you just have to plug it in somewhere. But for the rest of it, I would imagine that you mostly focus on the grant because that's your research anyway, right? So, I mean, it will just depend on how much, how realistic you will be in proposing your FTE percentage in the proposal, and be realistic about it because you will have maybe other things that will have to be taken care of. Yeah, okay, so the next one. Have you seen any non-tangible benefits of getting ERC? More collaboration opportunities, etc. How did your colleagues react? Ooh. In other words, I guess I read it the way, what do you get out of having the ERC beyond getting the money and the maybe freedom to do research that you like doing?
I would say that definitely for a starting group, this is quite important, because then like it is kind of like a mark of equality. So it's easier for you, like as a person who is starting, to set up new collaborations, because I mean they don't know you, but they know ERC. So then like that makes it slightly easier. That is.
And what about the colleagues reacting? That's a kind of interesting question, I guess, in the Czech context anyway. Maybe we'll skip it.
Yeah, we should skip it.
Does anybody want? Okay. And now the last one. Did any ideas you considered for the ERC fit better for other funding calls? Did you use those or just scraped those? Scrapped those. Should be double P, sorry. So, anybody? Did you just go straight for ERC and that was that? And I think pretty much you have to, because it's such a big, involved enterprise that it doesn't really, I would say it doesn't pay really to dilute it into different calls and then see what happens. I mean, I had a person who asked me personally what she should be doing, because there was a possibility to choose between two different calls, and should she be doing both of them or just pick one, and which one? And the answer was, if you're thinking about ERC, stick to ERC and forget about the other things. You just really have to focus on that one. Very unique, very prestigious, very beyond any competition call, and not kind of put it on the same level with other calls. That would kind of be the conclusion from that. Okay, so these are the questions. Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you that if you decide for ERC, you should not dilute it, and you should really prepare the proposal. It's very difficult to get it. Yeah. So at the same time, it was the deadline for expert projects by Czech Science Foundation, and I applied almost the same project to both targets. Of course, I announced that if I get both, I will use only ERC. So the result was that expert was not funded, and ERC advanced, yes.
Very good. Besides, you know, you have to actually put it in the form, in the application, whether you are currently applying for other proposals, other projects, and what they are about, how they are related or not related to the ERC proposal. And if it looks like it's basically the same thing or very much similar, it doesn't look good, because then the conclusion is, well, then you don't need ERC. It's obviously not that special, that unique, that you know, monumental to deserve ERC attention. So think of that. Okay, any questions that have not been asked yet and that you've been itching now for half an hour? Yes.
Thank you so much. So, Kateřina Čapková again. I have a question regarding academic or advisory board. I have seen in some applications that there are that some of the grants use this body, and at one point, it goes against this being independent and self-confident enough. At the same time, I was advised to think about it, because it also shows that big names are behind me, so I would like to know your opinion about it.
Do we have any thoughts on that?
Well, so I don't know about the advisory board, but definitely, like in my grant, I listed my collaborators. Some of those were big names, but those were not, you know, I did not. That was true, right? Those were people with whom I collaborated, and I could show it that, like, for example, we had common publications, right? So I had it there, but then, like, also specified, like, what are specifically the things which we are going to collaborate on, and yeah, That's how I...
Yeah, I have seen in some proposals saying, oh, and I have this network. Nobody actually called it a board necessarily, but I have this advisory network of people, and you list them, and from big universities all over the world. But it seems informal. Zdeněk wanted to say something?
Yeah, just I think there is no, say, plus or minus. It's just whether it is functional or not. If you go for the advisory board and explain what is the role within and this role is reasonable, then it's fine. There's no problem. I have seen such proposals. But if it just looks like we are hiding behind, of course it's not good. But it can be done in the way that you don't hide. You just say, well, it's good to meet like in 2 years, and they will just tell us whether this, because these things are sometimes difficult. I've seen that in mathematical or computer science grants quite frequently, and there was no problem.
Yeah.
So maybe in our grant, we also used a network of collaborators. So this was how we use it to demonstrate synergy. So we had a network full of big names, of course, and now we are 3 in the center, of course, and then we had connections to different parts. So this illustrates that we all 3 are needed.
Well, for synergy, I guess by definition you need something like that, but the other ones, it's, depending on how you feel about it and how you word it, how you formulate it. But it's always good to have a network, to have people around you. Are we exhausted at this point? I imagine you must be. So let me just first thank our 6 panelists. It was a great pleasure for me to meet you and see how you got from there to here. And thank you all for sticking with it for the whole day. I hope that you got the information you needed and encouragement. That's the most important part of the whole thing. And I want to also thank very much to Lida, who I know is not feeling any better than I am, and organizes all of this beautifully and takes care of all of us. And so, please do give her a hand now. She really deserves it. And of course, thanks to Zdeněk, who is the father of this whole project of helping you to get from here to there. And so I will keep my fingers crossed for all of you. I hope you will really seriously consider applying for these things and work on it hard and be successful. And then we will be successful. So thank you all, and have a great rest of the day.
Yes, I would like to thank to all the people who were here with us, the experts, the grantees, everyone. Because, as I've said in the morning, so they just devoted their time, and they don't do it, they just do it because they think it's the right thing to do. So that's a good thing to see in this world which asks for some money and for anything. So here you don't have this. And also I'd like to thank Charles University and Veronica. Veronica is somewhere, I don't know. And all the other people, yes, Veronica, and Adelka and all the other people from the Charles University who help in organization of this event. So thank you for coming, and all good luck. And if you decide to apply for the next call, and you decide to do something else with us, so just watch for the news when the registration for the workshops will be open, and click in the early time, okay, so that you'll get in, okay? We'll be very happy to see you, and all the best.